math and science. And I discovered there that the answers are not final. They are provisional. They're provisionally true. This is what we know now. Furthermore, it might change, and that's okay. Really, it's okay. In fact, it's a good thing. And best of all, you get to participate in the process. And I thought, wow, what a great deal. I get to think. I actually have to think for myself. I get to try to find out some of the answers. The answers aren't out there for me to just read from some other authority, but I actually have to try to think it through myself. For me, at least personally, and religion is the most personal of beliefs. That was far more enlightening and transcendent, spiritual, than anything I had experienced in 7 years of being a born-again Christian. And even today, even though I've been to Chartres Cathedral in France, it's one of the most spiritual places you can go on earth. But to me, to stand in the 100-inch telescope dome at the top of Mount Wilson is equally, if not more, spiritual. So science has, at least the discoveries of science isn't a religion, but the discoveries can be felt in a transcendent way. So I don't really see that there's any conflict here. You don't have to pick between the two. Now, in terms of what religion does, right, it does things that science doesn't do for the most part. And so, again, even if it turned out every scientist on the planet was religious, believed in God, was an evangelical Christian, take your pick, it wouldn't change what they do when they're doing science. Right? They would still have to go to work the next day and do science. Science has nothing to do with religion. In terms of some other claims here. Dr. Hovind asked about my position on the afterlife. Well, I'm for it. Really? I am. I hope it's true. And if it's there, I hope I'm going. Don't you? I mean, right? This would be great. But what I want to be true and what is actually true are two different things, and that's the problem with religious faith, is that you don't know if it's actually true. It's true for you, true psychologically, which is fine for a lot of things, but that's not science. A lot of things are like that. Politics are like that. A lot of social attitudes are like that, but that's not science. It's just something completely different. Kant said that the Bible is literally true. Really? Gosh, in Genesis, the first chapter, Adam and Eve are created at the same time. In the second chapter, Adam's created first. Then some other things happen. He names the animals. He gets a little lonely. He wants to be, the next Bachelor reality show. He says to God, I need a companion. God says, okay, I'll take that extra rib, and here's your companion. All right, so, of course, obviously, the Bible's not literally true. We have two creation stories. They can't literally be true. And, of course, thoughtful theologians say, well, of course, they're not literally true. These are two different explanations of the same phenomenon. Fine, but it's not literally true. And in any case, Kant mentioned good and evil, morality. Where is the standards for right and wrong if evolution's true, if there is no God? Where do we get these right and wrongs? Well, if we're supposed to take the Bible literally, and since gay marriages is a hot topic these days, you've heard all about Leviticus and Deuteronomy, where it says, a man shall not lie with another man. All right? Okay, but literally, if we're supposed to really turn to this as our source of morality, what about the next chapter where disobedient children are supposed to be stoned to death? Oh, well, we don't accept that today, because we're more enlightened. Really? I thought it was literally true. I thought all of it was true. What about the next chapter in which women, when you marry, if you do not show the signs of your virginity on the sheets the next morning after your honeymoon night, you are to be taken to the elders and stoned to death? That's in there. You can't believe this stuff is in there. If you actually read this Old Testament, you go, wow, this is incredible. This is in the Bible? Yeah, it is. So if you're supposed to take it literally, what do you make of that stuff? Of course, there's myths and legends from all cultures. Some of them are similar because it turns out all cultures that live on bodies of water that flood have flood myths. Cultures that don't live on bodies of water don't have flood myths. These are geographically determined. Now, Kant said that evolution's a religion. Look, if evolution is a religion, everything's a religion, then nothing's a religion. Religion, as a word, has to mean something. If you say that evolution's a religion, it doesn't mean anything. Evolution is not a worldview in the sense of offering moral homilies and purpose and meaning in life. You, as a person who takes a scientific worldview like me, you may construct your own personal meanings and purpose and discover your own right and wrongs through a variety of ways. I wrote a book about this called The Science of Good and Evil, but the actual science of evolution has nothing to do with any of that. The people that do evolutionary biology, they don't do morality and theology and God and what's the purpose and meaning of my life when they're doing science. These are two different things. Turns out 39% of all American scientists believe in God. So how do they do this if, according to him, they can't be doing this? Well, they do. How do they do that? All right? So these are two different things. In terms of the science of cosmic evolution, where the Big Bang come from, and so on and so on, these are, big subjects. A lot of data, an incredible lot of data. When I was in college, the Big Bang was not accepted. It was kind of a toss-up between the Big Bang and the steady state and so on. Finally, so much evidence came forth that hardly anybody supported the steady state theory. Now pretty much everybody supports the Big Bang. Not because they have to, or else they're going to have to become Christians or something. It has nothing to do with religion. They are simply concluding that because there's so much data in support of it. Despite of all the skeptics over the decades that said we don't believe the Big Bang, finally they were all converted to so-called believers in the Big Bang simply because there was so much evidence for it. I'm always amused when creationists bring up this evolution leads to communism, leads to abortion, leads to atheism, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and rape, and nastiness, and so on. I can assure you, if you study history at all, long before Darwin, people were nasty to one another, and they had wars, and rape was not uncommon, and thieves, and so on and so forth, criminals. There's nothing new about people doing nasty things to one another. That's what we do. It's part of our nature. We're also nice to one another, but it has nothing to do with a particular theory. And as for it being taught in public schools, well, that's a political issue, whether schools should be public or all private or what should be taught. What gets taught is, in fact, whatever is accepted amongst the experts. The experts accept the theory of evolution simply because the evidence is so overwhelming. As for the brights, I don't call myself a bright, mainly because I guess the natural implication is if you weren't a bright, you'd be a dim. And, well, I'll let his own definitions that he put up account for that. Bible's telling us that people are fools who don't believe, so I guess you're calling me a fool. Okay, if that's what you think, that's fine. Finally, as for increase in information in the genome and so on, we have so many examples of this, it's incredible. Lots of examples of gene duplication, chromosomal aberrations that lead to increases in complexity across various organisms, and I'll tell you more about that in my final 4 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Now Dr. Hovind. Dr. Hovind will give 10 minutes rebuttal to the opening comments by Dr. Shermer.